So I just have your bio here, and there's a couple of words I also want to pull out that I thought were important. You talked about these middle-level group of people, creative strategists, rising talent, but I also have heard you say before, when you talk about kindness, it's about helping people be seen, heard, and valued. Could you talk about those choices of words that you use and what that's about?
Kindness is a value that I grew up with. It's something that my parents demonstrated and talked about. And so it's just an instinctive thing. And there are lots of sort of perceptions around kindness. And I think some people think it's quite soft, quite fluffy, and particularly when it comes to business. And I thought about the impact that kindness has on somebody. When you have a kind act, when you are intentional towards somebody, it's not about you, it's not about the giver, it's about the receiver per se. And how that a small action, words, whatever it is, can change the course of somebody's day. And without being too grandiose, it can change their life. It really can. The choices, the confidence it gives them, the self-belief, whatever it might be. And I looked at those words and in what are the three things that kindness does? And it enables you to be seen. I see you, Ben. And then I hear what you say. I hear in your words. And then it creates that interaction, creates a value to it. And I invite anybody listening or watching this to, when you're next engaging with someone, like, I don't know, sitting down for a coffee or ordering somebody a drink or whatever it is, and say to them, instead of saying, "How are you?" And they go, "Great," and this isn't like another cup thing. Say, how are you doing today? Or how's your day started? And watch what happens. And you listen to and listening is a really kind of key thing as well. You listening to their response and see what happens. A couple of prompts. Ben, you're the master at prompts. And you just see the difference that makes. And it's a genuine thing. Like you read the situation and somebody's, maybe it's they don't have time for this interaction or whatever, but ask that. And people will stop and pause and they're like, "You've actually asked me a question." I'm like, "Yeah, because I really want to know."
Can I share a personal example? I was thinking about this idea of actionable kindness recently. And as I was cycling here this morning, I was trying to think of recent events where I've witnessed this to make it more tangible. And 3 days ago, I was sitting in the sauna with two other people, a man and a woman. And the man was just making all kinds of sighing noises. I thought he was unwell. So he's like really suffering. Oh. And I didn't want to ask him on the spot, "You okay?" But he ended up leaving. But it stuck with me. I was thinking, what is going on with this guy? But his friend was still there. And managed to muster up the courage, because you're in towels, you're naked. Also,
fairly
talking to a woman, don't want her to misunderstand what's going on here. I just said to her, "Is your friend okay?" She went, "Oh, he's fine. He just has a different aptitude for these things." And two things were amazing about this. First of all, her choice of words, aptitude. It was so gentle and forgiving and loving. But what followed was just a sort of like a breaking of the silence. And she just started talking. We had a conversation.
Okay.
And for me, that felt like a really good example, very light version of actionable kindness, where you act on thoughts of concern and compassion and curiosity.
Yeah.
And how that can lower the barriers and the walls that we put up and lead to a wonderful conversation and discoveries.
I think it's something that curiosity is a good word. I like that. And aptitude, I think, is brilliant. Where and it's not just giving people time and attention just for the sake of it. Because if you ask the question and then you don't listen to their response and you just, "Oh, that's great," it devalues the experience. But to give you a tangible example, when I was working in Switzerland, I used to commute in from Italy, which sounds far more glamorous than it actually is. I was on the Swiss-Italian border, Italian-Swiss border, and I had to get in early to beat the traffic because I'm crossing the border and all the rest of it. And in your mind, you might have like the opening sequence of the Italian job, and I'm driving a red Ferrari. I was stuck behind an oil tanker an hour in the morning. But I used to get in early, and I was always usually the first one in the office. And I knew, as my team were coming in, I paid attention to the first one in was Nelson, and he got the training, and then there was Daniel who came on his car. And gradually, one by one, I would stop and I would get up and say, "Hey, are you a little bit later?" Not to check in on them. Oh, the trains are running, or they're a bit late, or whatever it was. And I'm like, "Oh, have you had a coffee yet?" And I knew little bits of little nuggets of their life and their story. Another guy, "Oh, how's things?" "Oh, yeah, I was up all night with my daughter," or whatever. And it just grounds people. And after I knew the first between 5 and 10 people arriving in the office, I would actually have some interaction with them. They see me, and I had a team of 42 people, so it would be hard, not always practical, to say hello to 42 people every day because there are interactions and all the rest of it. But I would often I would get up from my office and go and just sit with people during the day if there was a spare desk or whatever, because it was a big sort of open plan office, and be like, "How are you doing? What's going on today then? How's your day started?" And just to give that present, because I was in an office and there was a wall and there was a glass door, but you couldn't see me in there. And so I used to just go and sit and just talk and chat. Or I'd come out and go, "Right, 12 o'clock, who's going for lunch?" And I'd go and I'd spend time with people. And I think feeling that presence, making people feel seen, heard and valued, it's a really, I would say kindness costs nothing, but it means everything.
I was at your book launch a couple of days ago, and there was a moment when everyone was asking questions, and there was a woman in the audience who asked a lovely question, which I want to steal. She has to be a strategist for sure. I think her name was Marline, but she was the one. I'll ask the question. She said, "What is the enemy of kindness?"
Carline.
Yeah. Sorry, Caroline. I only met you in a moment, if you're listening to this. I would love to hear your answer to that again.
It's a great question. And I think that, and I'm going to steal somebody's answer as well. I think, who was it? Somebody said that they thought thoughtfulness or unthoughtfulness, being unthoughtful, was the enemy of kindness, where you're just like belligerent and all the rest of it. To be honest and true to what I said the other day was, I think that if you relate it to the workplace, that the lack of, people need to feel safe and secure when they come to work. By that I mean that people feel that you've got their back, that they're not going to get dinged for asking a question that's not right or whatever. To create that open space, that open forum for dialogue. And I always say, you need innovation without recrimination. Can we try this? Can we do this? So I think very much toxic cultures, to give it a label, are the enemy of kindness. And I think the impact that has on individuals, on the overall efficiency, productivity of a business, and where the focus and the attention is put, I think that people can find that quite demoralizing. And I would say did she say it was the enemy of kindness or the opposite?
It's the enemy.
The enemy, yeah, I think that. And I think just probably actually the opposite of that, let's use my words, is not being seen, not being heard, and not being valued. And those ingredients, I think, probably add up to a toxic culture.
I really zoomed in on, connected to this idea of trust. And trust in the workplace is trust in the business environment.
Yeah.
At many different levels. Even myself, speaking as a freelancer, building long-standing trust with a client or an agency is super important to me.
Yeah. To build on that, I would say that there's a fundamental which often gets overlooked, is that people work for people. And sure, we can have automation and we can have tech and AI and all the rest of it. but there's still a lot of exchange between individuals, between departments, between teams. Speaking as a marketeer, I would always encourage my team to go and sit with operations and supply chain to understand what their world was like. Because say you're launching a new product and it's going to show up in a store or online or wherever it is, there's a whole bunch of people who are helping getting that product made, getting it shipped, getting all those things. It's like the tip of the iceberg. We think, oh, it's brand, it's cool and shiny. But there's 4/5 of the brand is the iceberg. It's what you don't see. And if you're not working, if you're not connected, if you don't have that interaction and trust, it ain't going to happen. I do think that organizations and brands are like little ecosystems. Everybody has a part to play. And you've got to know what your role is, what your value is within that. And everybody contributes something, from the CEO to the receptionist. I'm not diminishing receptionists at all. There's a beautiful story about, I think it was in the US, where end of the year, and this is pre sort of economic times that we're in now, where the receptionist got this huge bonus. People are like, why is so-and-so, quote, all they do is meet and greet. And I'm like, yeah, that's the first thing people see when they walk in our office, and the value that person has. They're worth 10 times this. So I think, the value of seeing every individual within an organization and understanding they're contributing, and also that giving that individual a sense of worth as well. Yep. Oh, I'm just this, or no, you're not. You're playing a part. You're really contributing.
As I'm listening to what you're saying, in the context of business, I also feel like another enemy of kindness is urgency, in the sense that it is very hard to give out kindness when one is feeling rushed or depleted.
So you've used 3 words: urgency, rushed, and depleted. To focus on urgency, right? That's probably let's stick with that, because, hey Ben, we've got to get this out by the end of the week, for example. That's urgency. If everybody, because I would actually challenge it is urgency is the end of kindness when you don't have kindness in place. If, for example, that you're working on a particular assignment, project, whatever it might be, there's always deadlines in business. What is my role? What is the priority? What are we trying to achieve with that? If you know those things up front, you can make those personal choices to go, okay, I've got 3 tasks today, but I need to focus on this one. And you don't have to check in with somebody, because you've explained it. It's clear, it's simple, this is where we're all. Kindness aligns people. It puts you in literally and metaphorically, you're all facing the same way. So that you don't need to check in, and I don't need to go, I've got these 3 things, which should I do first? No, I've done that. And then everybody is aligned to that. And it's one of the things with Mercury Jam, and the name where that comes from. It's about working with, when there is this speed and this urgency in business, that you do it in a kindly fashion where everybody has an understanding of what their contribution is, and they're not going to be dinged if like, oh, I'm going to do this before I do that. And I think it works on a macro level and it works on a micro level. Is it hard to implement? Absolutely, but it has to start somewhere, and it has to be grounded in very much into the organization. It's not a manifesto on a wall. It's not be kind on a mug. It's actually people instinctively know what it is. Yeah. Yes, urgency when there's an absence of kindness and clarity.
And I'd also add individual and collective sense of purpose.
Yeah. Because people do get rushed and they do get completed and depleted. And I think, yeah, having that understanding of where people are in their moment, going back to the cup and the energy levels, and yeah.
So I have a question here which I wrote a few months ago, and I'll update it after I've asked it in its original form. Is kindness good or a hindrance? When should we engage it? And when do other emotions serve as better? I think what I'm actually wanting to ask you here is, when could kindness ever be a hindrance? If you're not too careful, and you're a kind soul, you can get walked all over. And actually, I think I read something recently that said, if you're lying down, you're going to get walked on.
People can only walk all over you when you're lying down.
Thank you. There's something here I'd like to discuss around boundaries and appropriate moments to engage it, or to consider what else should be in the toolbox. Should it not be sufficient?
Okay, how I would respond to that is, I think you're alluding to it, is kindness like this constant, is it an always on kind of thing? Am I right? Or something around that? Yeah.
Could be.
But I think what it feels like, what it sounds like is there's a huge difference between being nice and being kind.
Would you explain the difference, please?
Niceness is, it's a level of courtesy, there's a level of respect, but in certain situations it's quite superficial. I'm just being nice. I was just being nice to them. How many times do you hear that? And I think that's something that, sure, be respectful. We need to be courteous and respectful now more than ever to one another. But being kindness is an action, right? It's something that you do in your words, in deeds. It's something that it's a physical manifestation, it's a verbal manifestation. And so if you choose, it's because I believe that it is a mindset that you have, it's always there, right? And I think in certain situations that, again, context is everything, but in certain situations, the kind thing for people is to be really clear and open and direct and tell people in a calm way that this is how you made me feel. This is how I feel about this situation. And it's putting I feel this, I feel happy, I feel frustrated, which is very different from I'm frustrated, I'm happy. Labeling the emotion, I feel this, feel that, really helps. And again, if kindness is a constant drumbeat, it's applicable in pretty much all situations, I would say.